Here's my wolf walking through a patch of a new flower that we're adding to WolfQuest Anniversary Edition, Indian paintbrush, or red paintbrush. And in today's video I want to look at a number of new things we're adding to the environment, but first, WolfQuest is on sale this weekend only on Steam and itch.io. So if you haven't got the game yet, or if you're looking forward to playing Slough Creek multiplayer with friends, it's coming pretty soon, so now's a good time to suggest they buy it, or maybe even buy it for them as a gift. Okay, so as I showed a couple weeks ago, inspired by our trip in September to Yellowstone, I decided to dig in and work on making especially the forest environment denser with a variety of ground clutter, downed logs and branches, more realistic tree stumps, and more vegetation, because it's a pretty dense place, and there's no way we can make it as dense as the real thing, but I think we got it one step closer here. So the two most obvious things here besides the new tree stumps are a couple new bushes. So we looked over the many different kinds of bushes in Yellowstone Forest and chose two, huckleberry and snowberry, common snowberry. Now ideally these would be very dense on the forest floor. Of course that becomes a performance issue on computers, and so I've been doing a lot of tweaking and testing and tuning to try to get it so they don't hurt performance too much. So for a long time now we had this pull down in the lower left corner for grass and bush variety. And we're adding a new option here. Before we had high and low. What was high is now medium, and there's a new high. So I've been showing this to you on the high setting. If we switch to medium, I've been trying to tune this so it's basically the same performance as you got previously when it was set on high. So not as nice, but still I think better than it was before. Now I'm testing all this on my PC with a GTX 1060 graphics card, which is about 5 years old now and was I guess a medium level card at the time. And I generally run on fantastic, so if we now crank that up to the maximum grass and density and switch it back to high, so max out the vegetation here. And this looks pretty nice, but of course if you're watching the FPS counter up in the corner, you'll see a big drop here. That's because this is really designed for newer cars like the 2000, 3000 series. And you can see these little pauses here are because I basically crank things up beyond what my graphics card can handle, and basically the game has to calculate where to place plants. As I'm moving around, it's placing them within 100 to 150 meters of my wolf, and it has to calculate this on every frame. And with the settings maxed out, my graphics card can't keep up with that, and so it pauses periodically, and that's a sign you need to step down on your graphics settings or get a better graphics card. Anyways, now obviously I would love it if it looked this good on all computers, and some people do comment and reviews it. They think the game needs to be more optimized, and in fact you read reviews of indie games in general, and there's often comments about the game needs to be optimized more, and sometimes that's quite true, but there's actually something deeper that's the core issue there. Indie games generally have to use existing game engines like Unity, which is what we use, which are basically multi-purpose toolkits for game development. They're not geared toward any one type of game. Whereas when a AAA company makes a game, a big game, they generally create a game engine specifically for that game because they know exactly what that game is going to be and what it needs to do. And they can create a very custom engine that specifically and solely does exactly what that game needs it to do as efficiently as possible. So it runs on the broadest range of computers as possible. Of course, that costs, I don't know, a couple $1 million, $5 million, $10 million. I don't really know, except that I know that it costs a lot more than our entire game. Or sometimes they'll take an existing game engine and then basically throw out the rendering engine inside that and create their own. They can do that because they know they're going to sell millions of copies. Whereas WolfQuest, it's a niche game, and we do it because we love it. But we're not going to sell millions of games. And so we have to work within the constraints of a niche indie game. Anywho, game development is complicated. So along with these new plants and ground clutter, we've been working on a lot of other little improvements, and here we've got a storm brewing, and so now when there's a storm brewing you can hear the distant thunder. Now switching over to amethyst, we've got the same snowberry and huckleberry bushes there, but it's fall colors. Now fall colors in Yellowstone aren't really vivid. It's not like New England or Minnesota. And in fact, the snowberry, which in the last video I had made red, I was mixed up on that. It doesn't turn red, it turns just sort of a light yellow. But huckleberry turns burnt red. And so patches of huckleberry on the forest really add these nice dashes of color. Now, while I've been working on all this stuff, and Andre's been helping me out with this stuff, as well as making dozens and dozens of bug fixes and nice little refinements and tweaks and polishes. And while Miko's been working on the Slough Creek multiplayer, Tommi has been working on refactoring and improving the navigation system, the pathfinding system, obstacle avoidance, and other kind of movements for all the NPC animals. And that's taken a fair bit of time, which is one reason this patch hasn't come out yet. But it's finally coming together, and this solves a number of problems that we've been having with animals getting stuck walking in circles around a meat chunk, or your mate getting stuck on a rock trying to cross a creek. Those are fixed now. And the elk, when you're chasing the elk through something dense like the burn area here, they're much better at navigating and avoiding the trees and the rocks. So that's really shaping up. It's not quite done yet. The eagles and ravens, sometimes at a carcass, they're flying very slowly. So that and a couple other things are still in the work, getting fixed up. But I do expect to get this next patch out in public beta soon, and then released soon after that.